Hey, scholars. Let's talk about location strategy, which is chapter 8 of the textbook. First, as the 10 OM decisions go, location strategy or picking a location for your business is one that you're probably going to do less of than most of the others because we typically don't change locations very frequently. Of course, in a very quickly growing business, they may need new locations often. But for most of us, it's just not something that happens on a regular basis. But that doesn't make it any less important, and there's critical things that we need to know and think about when picking a location for our business. Of course, part of the decision is going to be based on what the heck the business does. So it's a broad topic and it's a general topic, and we'll try to be somewhat specific about it. But let's talk about the 7. Thank you, Colin. The 7 areas where we need to be paying attention when we're looking at location strategy or picking a location for our business. The first was labor productivity. So how productive are our people? And that's not so much the typical productivity formula that we talked about a few chapters ago, which was the number of widgets produced divided by the number of hours required to produce those widgets, typical productivity. But this is more labor cost per unit. So what are the labor costs per day over what is the production in terms of estimated units produced per day? So both the numerator and the denominator are going to play into, as it would in any division, into our calculation, but the numerator, the labor cost per day, is going to be the one we're going to look at the most here. We use the example of opening an auto plant in Detroit, where you've got UAW wages probably at 28, 29 bucks an hour plus significant union benefits, versus Alabama, where they're probably paying these people 14 bucks an hour. So your labor cost per day is going to be significantly higher up in the beautiful city of Detroit, which happens to be where I'm from, and in Alabama. So that's number 1. Number 2 is exchange rate and currency risk. We spent some time talking about that and how you've got sometimes hard dollars chasing soft dollars. It depends on where you're going, but that if you've got a country that you're looking at building a site in, you're probably going to be paying a lot of hard dollars, US dollars, euros, other hard currencies to get the site up and running, and then you may be getting your money back out of it in soft currency, which is very apt to fluctuate in a significant fashion. I gave the example of the Ukraine where they had a hyperinflation there, and what happened to our investment, AT&T's investment there as a result of that. Next is cost, broken into 2 different areas. The first is they call them tangible cost in the book, which is utilities, rent, probably labor, or anything else that goes into the cost of running the business. And the second is intangible cost, which are going to be things that you don't quantify quite as much, quality of life things, access to hospitals, schools, things of that nature. How likely is it that you're going to be able to get employees to come to that area? Be something that would be considered there. Next is political risk, values, and culture. And again, you should know these things if you're looking at putting in a site internationally, or possibly even in the U.S. There's some different parts of the U.S. that have different values and different cultures, and then you need to keep that in mind. The next is proximity to markets. So this would be more critical if that's going to be critical anyways, but in a service organization, for instance, location is going to be something that you're going to have to consider if you're opening a restaurant or a dry cleaner or whatever it may be. If you're opening up a factory, it could be 50 miles one way or another, and it might not make that much difference. Proximity to suppliers. So how likely is it that suppliers are going to come to you? You could look at Bentonville, Arkansas as an example here at the home of Walmart. And I don't think they cared much. They don't get too much more in the sticks than Bentonville, Arkansas prior to Walmart. And the suppliers come to them. So if you're big enough, that's going to happen. But still, it's important to know, especially in a growth phase. Next is proximity to competitors, which we also noted was clustering, which is where we put a number of like organizations together, such as restaurants, Lowe's and Home Depot, where these organizations, auto dealerships, where they cluster together. And I think that's it. I think that was the 7 of them. So anyways, other things in the chapter here, we talked about fixed costs, variable cost, total cost, in the decision to automate a plant when you're building it. And do you put more money into fixed cost up front to reduce your variable cost as you go forward, i.e. put in more robotics, for example, versus having a higher labor rate as you go forward. So your variable cost line would be at a lesser slope and your fixed cost would be a higher point. It's going to depend on how much volume you expect to do, and that's relatively easy math to do. And I think that's it for this chapter.